Good morning, good morning. I'm Reverend Morgan McLean, and I'm really grateful to be here with you today. My assistant is my daughter Myrtil, and we have had the joy of coming to visit a few times already this summer with my husband Daniel and my dad Andy. I am proud to serve in the Unitarian Universalist Association's Office of Global Connections and Emerging Communities, although today I won't be talking about that, but I'm grateful for the invitation from Rev Lev to come back later this year to talk more about global Unitarian and Unitarian Universalism. As we begin our service, I invite you to silence your phone, or if you're joining us on Zoom, close your other windows. Take a deep breath and center yourself into this space. You open these services acknowledging that this church, like Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoic tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and realization of justice with the people of this land who live on in their descendants, the present-day members of the Manahawkin Indian Nation, the Potawatomi Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all together shall one day know full justice.
Good morning on this beautiful morning. I am Judy Robison. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm happy to be your worship associate today. This congregation is a welcoming and inclusive spiritual home where we inspire each other to live our values. Together we care in community, grow in spirit, and act for justice. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we're so delighted that you decided to join us today. So welcome. As we light our chalice with our helper this morning, please join in reciting these words from our mission statement. They're on the screen. Together we care in community. Together we grow in spirit. Together we act for justice.
Each month in the worship in this church, it centers around a theme. Today, as the guest minister, I'm hoping you'll hear a connection between this month's theme of democracy and next month's theme of invitation. I invite you to center yourselves into worship with these words from the Czech Unitarian founder Norbert Čapek. In human eyes burn the soul of living, illumines altars of loving giving. Greeting we meet, seeing light brightly glowing, share in a greater life, God's vision growing.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Davis.
And I'm Anna Meredith.
And today, we're not going to share one book with all of you. Anna and I are going to share 478 books with you. But looking at the clock, you can all clap. Looking at the clock, I don't think we're going to have time to read all of them this morning. However, starting today, these 478 books will be available for you, all of you, to borrow from our AUUC Children's Library for All. And it's right there in the front. After today's service, we invite you to check it out and borrow books of your choosing to take home and enjoy and bring back.
About a year ago, I approached Ashley Nelson Miners, our former Director of Religious Education. I told her that I had created an online catalog of all the books in our home library. I told Ashley that I wanted to volunteer to enter AUUC's children's books into the same library app.
And she did. For years, hundreds of children's books sat first in a closet downstairs and then migrated upstairs into the RE office. Ashley was passionate about making these books available to everyone, including all the new titles that she purchased for Time for All Ages. At the same time, Rev Lev began telling us about the proposed UU values, and he distributed and keeps distributing these colorful bookmarks defining the values. Using these 8 categories in colors, plus I had to add 2 more colors, I created an organization system based on the proposed UU values, and then crossed my fingers that the UUA would adopt them, which they did. If you can count by tens to 90, then this system is a snap. No long Dewey Decimal numbers to worry about. In the meantime, and I have my props over on the wrong side. In the meantime, I found colored tape, rolls and rolls of colored tape, and placed one of the 10 colors on the spine of each of the books. And thank you, Jessica and Shelley, for helping with that task. This simple system, is explained on this laminated guide, which is available over near the library, and we can post it other places. For example, in the green section, that's the number 10, that's the first section, you'll find books about friends and community, feelings and emotions, bullying and coping with death, and the book that some of you remember, I really should probably move this chair. Over here. Oh, Judy can hold them up if you want. Circles all around us. This, yeah, oh, how appropriate. This story, you might remember, is about love and kindness and how we can create bigger and bigger circles of community and connections. All the books in the number 10, which is generosity, should be in here. The generosity category have green tape on the spines. In the number 40 justice category, the books have yellow tape. And I guess Anna can show us. Here you're going to find books about gender and racial justice, immigration, disability awareness, food and economic justice, and voting, such as Via's for Voting and Amelia Bedelia's First Vote, both very timely books right now. Moving back to a bin over there with the number 20, and this is where we had to go to silver, the books have silver tape and include What Do You Believe? It's a book with lots of pictures and text presenting a variety of different religions. In the silver section, you'll find a book about Confucius and another book about the flaming chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism.
Once all the books were organized, the next step was for the 2 of us to scan all of the books to create a library catalog. It is available to all of you online through this URL and QR code.
Here it is. Whoops. You won't need a QR code quite that big, but there are QR codes over on the book bin, and I believe it's in this week at Accotink. If it wasn't in this week, it'll be in next week's this week. For now, the Children's Library for All will be kept here, right in the front of the sanctuary. And as you can see from the overflow onto 3 or 4 chairs, we are counting on all of you to check out books. We may have to buy another piece of furniture. Now, when you do want to check out books, we're not quite electronic yet. We might be working on that, but it's a complicated process. So for right now, we're using the old-fashioned, please sign out your name and the book. And when you return the book, just cross out your name and because of the color tape on the spine, you'll be able to put it right back into the correct bin. You can keep the books for 2 or 3 weeks. We don't have a library police force. We don't even have a library committee. And then please return them right to the bin, as I mentioned.
Now we want to take a few minutes to show you what the online library catalog looks like and how to search for titles you may want to borrow. Okay. So the books come up alphabetically by title. So if you can see, if you scroll down, it's alphabetical. And when you click on a cover, you can see the basic information about the authors and the copyright date and description.
And you'll also see a 2-digit number. We can look at any book, they all have them. In this case, for Amazing Grace, it's the number 30. It's blue, and you'll be able to see it when you do it at home. This number tells you in which category you'll find the book. And as this laminated guide will help you, the books with the number 30 are in the pluralism section, and the books have blue tape on the spines. Truth be told, I was looking for a specific book this morning in the blue section, and because they're not in alphabetical order, I couldn't find it. So, however, it's there somewhere in the blue section. So that's one of the fallacies of the system, is they're not alphabetized within each section. But anyway, it's a browsing library, it's not a research library. UUs are very flexible, right? So Anna, if you would search for trees, I know over the years the Green Sanctuary Committee has asked me, can you find us a book about trees? So you'll see how easy the search was. I mean, I couldn't even turn around before these books came up. Now, if you wanted to find all of the books related to honoring the web of life, which is the category of number 50, then Anna is going to go back to search, and there should be tags, and the number is 50. If she wanted books on pluralism, she would type in 30, but this is 50. And when I tried it last night, there were 59 books that came up in 0.42 seconds. So this is a really fast app. We have one more tip we want to share. Sometimes you might remember a key word that was in the title of one of the books during a previous Time for All Ages. One of the books you might remember was a book about pies, but you can't remember the whole title. You have no idea what color bin it's going to be in, or heaven forbid you can't remember the author's name. Anna, would you please just type in the word pies? Here it is. And did 3 books come up?
Yes.
Two of these books are about that courageous Georgia Gilmore, whose pies helped feed and fund the Montgomery bus boycott in 1956. So this book, if you look at the spine, is in the yellow section, number 40, and we have 2 different books about Georgia. If you wanted to find all or most of the books that have been read during Time for All Ages, Anna's going to go back and search and type in the word TFAA, Time for All Ages. Okay. So there they are. If you find books that we haven't added the TFAA, just let me know and we'll add it. So that is that.
Most importantly, we want you to know that the books in our AUC Children's Library are not just for young children, but for everyone.
And I also wanted to mention, we do have another library here at the church. It's out by the main door. It has books for adults and young adults. And we thank Kate McDevitt and Kate Heilig and the True Accotink Colors for keeping that library book for adults and young adults up to date. And I wanted to just share one last timely thing. Because I was in the car for 2 hours this morning, I had time to open up the Washington Post. And the book world today features the beloved author, children's author, and DC resident Jason Reynolds. And we have one of his books, it's over here in my chair, look both ways, in the 80s section of the library. And Jason Reynolds is quoted at the end of this article saying how he arranges his books. Well, it turns out he doesn't arrange his books. It goes how it goes, he said. This is how it is today, but when I get a second, I'll put it in some sort of order that makes sense to me, if I want to. So our books, organized by our UU values, make sense to us, and we hope it'll make sense to you. So do join. So do join us after the service, check out some of these books, enjoy a cake to celebrate, and meal packing also. A busy day here at AUC.
Today's reading are words from Alondria Williams, who served as co-moderator of the UUA from 2017 to 2020. She says this: if we believe in the promise of our faith, we must continue pushing forward, even if the reality makes us want to give up. There is no one-size-fits-all solution or model, but there are many paths forward based on context, relationships, and place. Ideology sparks movements, but relationships are what change organizations and sustain movements. It takes one relationship at a time. In the end, changes to the leadership of the institution happen because of relationships, people pushing. We must place value on the relationships and the need to not leave folks behind in our quest for transformation. She continues, I live in a small city, and living in that small city helps me understand what community means. Community doesn't only include the people who agree with you or those with whom you want to be friends. Our Unitarian Universalist faith is similar in the sense that we are a small religious community of people who are not bound by creed, but instead bound by principles, values, and a covenant with the need for intellectual rigor combined with spiritual depth or humanist love. Everything comes back to our congregations and covenanted communities. That is where our faith starts and ends. We must embody the changes we wish to see, and not just say we believe in those changes. We must actually live the changes with every fabric of our being. We believe in the promise of our faith. We must continue pushing forward.
I want to start my sermon with a scavenger hunt. Of sorts. Without looking down, who can tell me the name of the gray hymnal? Brenna. You can do it. No, who can tell me? I won't put Brenna on the spot if she's not ready. Singing the Living Tradition. Who just found out the hymnal had a title? So we're reminded every Sunday, whether we knew it had a title or not, that we are part of a living tradition, a living, breathing, changing, growing tradition. Unitarian Universalist faith forebears said, we will change with the times. We will not have a creed and make everyone stick to it. So in this hymnal, now here comes the scavenger hunt continues. If you can find the statement of principles and sources in your hymnal, it's a couple pages in. It's before the pages have page numbers. And at the top it says, we the member congregations of the. So when we look at this page, we learn a couple interesting things about our living tradition. These first part of the page, the 7 principles, were adopted in 1985, and they tell us, that little preamble here, we the member congregations of, not we the people, but that there are individual congregations with unique histories and ways of practicing Unitarian Universalism who come together to covenant, to affirm and promote these values as laid out. So we are a group of congregations who come together to covenant with common values. What isn't clear on this page is that this statement is actually part of it's part of the UUA bylaws, part of the governing legal documents of the Unitarian Universalist Association. They don't feel very bylaw-ish, do they? We'll get there. Historically, both the Unitarians and the Universalists had statements like this, sometimes called statements of faith or professions or declarations, and they were debated. They were democratically adopted at meetings and conventions. They were the way that this whole emerging communities responded to the changing times and to the growth and establishment of both Unitarianism and Universalism. So in 1961, when those two traditions came together to form the Unitarian Universalist Association, they adopted a new set of principles. Who thinks it was this statement in 1961? I already told you the answer. These are 1985. So they had a set of principles, and then 24 years later, they did the principles that are printed in this book. And they began in this statement, this 1985 statement, they actually included the articulation of the sources of spirituality. So that's that second half of that page. So I want you to look at that second half of the page, the sources of our faith. And who has the last sentence, not the Grateful for Religious Pluralism, the one that's above that? Whose last sentence is humanist teachings which counsel us to? All right, show of hands. I will look around. Are you confused? Because not everyone's hand is raised. Whose hymnal ends with humanist teachings? So about half of us here ends with humanist teachings. So what do the others of you have? Spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. You see, we are part of a living tradition. And so some of you have the 1993 print edition of the hymnal in your hand. But in 1995, after a decade of work and growth and transformation, UU pagans and folks discovering goddess spirituality worked really hard to have that part of their spirituality recognized by all of us. And so they adopted in 1995 this new statement, the spiritual teachings of earth-centered religions. So there we have it. We are a living, growing, breathing tradition. And today, if you had a new print edition of the hymnal, there'd be one more change on this page. So, in fact, that second source, don't you wish these had like stars or something? Words and deeds, you see that? Words and deeds of prophetic women and men. So, in 1993, when these were adopted, it was actually pretty radical and kind of a big deal to put women before men. But in 2024, we're past that. And you know what's more important? Is saying people. Because we, as a faith tradition, have embraced inclusion of gender identity. And so just in 2018, these bylaws were amended to change to people instead of women and men. But all of that aside, in fact, an actual new print edition would look completely different because just 2 months ago, the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association were changed, and I think a lot of you might know that. So it was revised with a rearticulation of our values. It's 40 years now since that statement was adopted. And this rearticulation, in my opinion, gives us a little more to hold on to. It centers love. Love as the power that holds us together. And then it names some key values, which we heard from Nancy. And in fact, you all, almost all of you, have this bookmark, and that's what this is. This is our new edition of the hymnal, our new addition to it. So you can see in the little picture, if you have it, love is at the center. And then we have these key values which connect us: interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, equity. So we have a lot to keep learning and growing. This is brand new. We're going to keep exploring this, and hopefully before 40 years from now, we'll have some new additions, some new things that we have learned about ourselves, or a circle that we've drawn even wider to include more people. Earlier this year, I was asked to talk with a UU high school youth group about one of these values, about pluralism. And I realized I didn't know anything about, really, pluralism. I had trouble even maybe defining pluralism. I should have come, Nancy, to the green section. Is it green? She's going to tell us. Blue. Okay, the blue section. So I really found that I kept defaulting maybe to a definition of more like diversity, right? Diversity is a kind of a peaceful coexistence. But that's not what pluralism is. So I came to myself to understand that pluralism is, and they articulate it here too, embracing the differences in culture and experience and theology. So not just saying, yes, we can all work next to each other. No, we actually embrace diversity and learn and grow from each other. So how was I going to talk to this group of high school students? And I should put a disclaimer: high school students are generally not my people. I can talk to, my 5-year-old is not my person either. Like 18 months old, those are my people. So, how could I sit there and talk about pluralism, and what would a real life example be? So, and as I was going through this process with the youth and my own reflection, I realized that pluralism might actually be a tension that I've experienced in Unitarian Universalism, and I'll explore that with you a little bit here. So here's what we came up with in this high school youth group. A high school has been giving $1 billion to build a new building, and each club gets their own room. And in that room, they can do whatever they want because that's the club and they get to set the rules. But then there's a community room and there's a ping pong table. And so these clubs, if they're going to play ping pong together, they have to agree on the rules of ping pong. So how do you decide who gets to be next at the ping pong table? Who's going to be the next player? Well, we went around the room, and everyone in that room was in the debate club, and the debate club said, well, we would debate, and then whoever clearly wins the debate would be the next player. And the theater person, theater club is not, anyway, the theater club person said, well, we probably would just wait in line, and whoever was next would play. And then the guy on the football team said, well, you would just get to play until you lost. And then if you lost, then the next person would go. So they all have their own ways of deciding who's next at the ping pong table. None of them better or worse, just unique to their context. But this was a common room. And they had to find a common understanding, appreciating the differences of the different rules about how they would play ping pong. Okay, stick with me here, okay? So, if we are building this ping pong table and building the rules for the ping pong table, what would it really look like to appreciate the differences? To talk without judgment about the values of, yeah, everyone until they lose should play. Or, oh, that's really interesting, everyone waits in line and then you just play one game at a time. So sitting in that church basement, these teenagers, I had this epiphany that at some point, so all of these clubs finally go through this process and they really appreciate each other and they have these new rules of ping pong and they get comfortable with the rules. And they just keep playing by those rules and maybe a whole generation of the new high school students are playing by those rules because that's what we've done. But then at some point, they're no longer the debate team and the theater group and the football team playing ping pong. They've become the ping pong club. They've established their own rules, their own norms, and there haven't been new people to challenge them, or maybe they have been, and those new people just said, oh, I guess these are the rules of the ping pong table. So pluralism would say, are we still listening? Are we still listening to new ideas? Are we still experiencing other people who are coming into this common room and finding out how they understand the rules and how they might have new ideas? So when we're really curious about how other people understand the world, I think that's a key to pluralism. When we're really curious and willing to be changed, willing to give up our norms, then we don't stick as the ping pong table or as the Unitarian Universalists in a certain way, but we are this living, growing, breathing tradition. In this congregation, I'll say my family and I have come just a couple times this summer. We newly moved to Springfield, and we've been joyfully welcomed here. And thank you for dealing with my 5-year-old. She loves to be in front. She did ask if she could sing a solo in the microphone, so I saved you from that. But I did promise her maybe another time. So. She wanted to ring the bowl too. Oh yeah, she wanted to ring the bowl. She was ready. She was just going to lead the service. So. And my dad is here, and he's got some mobility challenges, and my husband is here, and he loves people, and we've been very warmly welcomed here. So I know that this group of people, you're really great at opening the door and saying hi and letting people in. My hope is that you are open to being changed by the people who come in the door. And that, honestly, is my most sincere hope for every member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association across the country. As both a minister and a member, I've been part of many UU congregations, and I have seen this problem of creating the ping pong club. I've seen this tension of having new voices come in. The finance committee, the caring committee, the circle dinner committee. I don't know if you have those things here. So I was in a meeting in a circle dinner planning committee. We couldn't possibly invite children to the circle dinners. No, that's for adults who drink wine. Okay. Oh no, we couldn't send text messages to let people know we're thinking about them from the caring committee because we always send cards. So I won't ask for a show of hands here, but I will ask you to answer honestly in your heart, how many of you have been part of a committee like that? A project at church, or maybe at your work or in your family, where the idea of a new person has just been sort of rejected because it's not the way you do things. I definitely have been. How many of you have ever read the blurb of an upcoming service and said, that's not for me? I know everything I want to know about that. Or I don't care to know. Or I don't believe in that stuff. I've done that too. It's my invitation today to myself and to all of you, to all of us in Unitarian Universalist congregations, is to be more flexible in our faith, curious and inviting, to resist creating the ping pong club, to continue to find new ways of setting the rules, to embrace the living, changing, growing tradition that we love so much. What I've seen is when that person on the caring committee who's so excited to set up a text chain is told no, then it's like that person's whole self has been rejected. Not just that idea, but I was just trying to be part of the community. And so that person all of a sudden says, oh, I guess I don't belong here. I guess I can't be part of the caring or the meaning-making of a community. And honestly, our tradition is less vibrant, less alive every time someone feels that way. I know that this takes some personal work. Of course, self-awareness and reflection, because I am someone who has a lot of great ideas, and I'm happy just to do them. And I don't always need other people's buy-in because I am certain it's the right way to do it. So, if that sounds like you, I invite you to sit with that a little bit, to sit with your bookmark, and think about this idea that love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. Love holds us together. I find that a pretty profound statement. And what would it mean for me in that committee to really lead with love and not with my best ideas? We've been singing about love so much. What songs do you know? We won't look through it. What songs?
Answering the call of love.
Answering the call of love.
Love will guide
Love
us.
will guide us. There is more love somewhere. What wondrous love is this? We know about this love, and we can sit with this love and think about what does it mean for us? What does it mean for us now to center yourself as a Unitarian Universalist in love? And where are the places that you might loosen up a little bit, where you might be a little more flexible, where you might be ready to listen in a new way, to embrace the living tradition simply because it is living. These values play out in our lives in so many ways, and so I invite you to really think about them. Think about what it means in your context, in your life, in your spirituality, and in your understanding of what is sacred. We have this beautiful, complicated faith, and I truly do believe that we have the ability to transform the world with our love. That's in another song we sing. We are such a deep tradition because you, each of you, have come into it and changed it. Our fabric of our being is richer and deeper, is more beautiful because of who comes in the door and who moves us forward. So, are you ready to join me with flexibility at the silly ping pong table and be guided by love? I hope so.
So please rise now in body or in spirit and join in our closing words. You may join hands with your neighbor if you are comfortable doing that. As we extinguish our chalice, I invite you to join me now in our community blessing with these words of David Bumbaugh, slightly adapted. This church is dedicated to the proposition that by embracing our differences and celebrating our diversity, we honor the unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
And you can keep holding hands, and I send you forth with these words from Mwibutsa Najimana, the founder of the Unitarian Church in Burundi. He was persecuted for his beliefs and fled the country in 2015 and now lives in Canada. I am grateful for the faith that reminds me all the time to have faith in the human capacity of building a more just and fairer world, to have faith in our responsibility as we live in this place, to have faith in the many possibilities that God has for us, and to be open to freely embrace them. Go in peace.